Hi everyone, and welcome to my first vlog of the year, and in this I'm going to be reading Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. This is one of my most anticipated reads. I was originally planning on reading it in that kind of like time period between like Christmas and New Year's. I feel like Rebecca Ross's writing just feels so cozy and I feel like it was perfect for that time period, but I've kind of like dragged it into January accidentally. So I'm really excited to actually get to this now. If you don't know what Wild Reverence is, this is essentially an adult fantasy standalone, I believe, that is set in the same world as the Divine Rivals kind of trilogy. In Divine Rivals, we kind of follow two humans who are reporters, and there's this war going on with the gods in the world. And in Wild Reverence, we see more about the gods, and one of the main characters is a goddess. So we see an expansion of that world, and then also the storyline following Matilda, the goddess, and her kind of relationship that she has with a human called Vincent. It follows Matilda as she from like quite a young age, and she discovers that she can go into the dreams of this boy who's around a similar age to her and visit him in his dreams. They kind of build up a friendship, and then it kind of like goes from there as different things happens and their stories kind of cross paths once again. So I'll read the synopsis actually. I'll read the synopsis because I feel like this sums up. A goddess born to the violet domain of the underworld, Matilda is blessed with humble messenger magic, carrying letters and secrets through the realms, including one of her own, a mortal boy who appears only in her dreams. 10 years ago, Vincent of Beckett wrote to Matilda on the darkest night of his life, begging the goddess he befriended in his dreams for aid, but his prayers went unanswered, forever hardening his heart against the gods. That is, until she arrives bearing a letter with the promise of a future beyond dreams, one that may rewrite the dark, blood-soaked way of the gods or end them. So it kind of follows as their paths are crossing again and how their kind of tales are kind of interweaved together. I've been slowly reading this across the month, like mostly before bed, and really taking my time with it because it feels like it's written in a very similar vein to the way that, because they're gods, it feels like Greek mythology almost. And I love like that we get this kind of introduction to the kind of underling gods. You also get like the skyward gods, and I love seeing the difference between them. We also get little snippets like when we're in the god worlds, and the kind of like politics and the relationships that are going on there and the way that the gods interact with each other. We also see the two gods who were in Divine Rivals. We see little snippets of them, and it feels like it really makes the world kind of like come full circle. You're kind of back in that world and you're seeing all of these things that I really wanted to see in Divine Rivals. But I'm so glad that Rebecca Ross has done this series because it feels like it really fills in that gap of like understanding what the gods are like. And I really love the way that the gods are kind of described as so different from humans. Like we really get into like what their like psyche's like and how the gods kind of feel, and they're very protective of themselves and they don't trust each other and they can kill each other and take their magic. So it's a very like different experience to kind of human like mortal life. They're immortal, but they can also be killed and banished and basically sent away. And you're always kind of protecting yourself because the gods are always kind of out for each other, basically. The allyships are so fragile because you kind of can't always trust everyone, and like you're always kind of scared that someone's going to stab you in your back for your magic. And I feel like it's really interesting to look at that and see that kind of like other side of like the gods. Everyone thinks that the gods will just be like, you know, like great benevolent gods, but there's also this darker side to it. And we're seeing Matilda and Vincent as they kind of got to know each other in their dreams, and then we're seeing them as they have come back together as adult. Matilda is helping Vincent. They have this friendship, and for different reasons they've had this time apart from when they were children, and they've only just kind of like started to explain to each other what happened. And I love how there's this tension between them where they haven't really been aware of what's happened to the other one and why they lost contact, and then when they're getting in contact again, they kind of still have this like bond between them. They feel like they have this friendship. It's all kind of a little bit awkward and new still, so they're kind of like having to bridge that gap, and they kind of like slowly have to build up this new trust with each other. And Matilda's basically trying to help Vincent out in this situation. I'm loving it so far, and I love reading it so slowly because it feels like I just like get to like go back into this world, and I feel like I have to stop myself from reading too much, especially because I'm reading it at night mostly. I'm like, oh no, I can't be reading too much. Although the new Animal Crossing 3.0 expansion has just come out, like just been released, so I'm like battling myself to be like, no, I'm not going to play Animal Crossing. I need to read my book before bed, not play Animal Crossing. But you know, maybe I can do both. maybe I can do both, but Animal Crossing is taking up a bit more of my time at the moment, so we'll see how the rest of it goes. I don't want to give like too many spoilers, so I'm being kind of vague about what's happening. I know there's meant to be this like kind of like grand epic love story between Vincent and Matilda, and you can kind of see from the link from their childhood that now they're having this kind of like, that they have this kind of awkwardness, and I love the awkwardness between them. It's not too uncomfortable. You kind of can tell that they like each other and they're being a little bit, it's kind of cute. It's cute awkward rather than awkward, if that makes any sense. But I loved Rebecca Ross's romance in Divine Rivals, so I'm fairly confident that the way that the romance is going is going to continue in the way that I like. I'll check back in once I've read some more and have some extra thoughts. So apparently I'm a liar. Tell me why I've been sat here saying, read my first book of the year with me, it's Wild Reverence, when actually it's Snake Eater by T. Kingfisher. Wild Reverence has just taken me a lot longer to read than I initially planned or hoped for. So apparently I've just accidentally read Snake Eater and finished it. It's one, a smaller book, and two, I had the audiobook, so it was easier to kind of listen to. I didn't have to sit and read it all the time. It's like a fantasy horror. I feel like I initially thought it was more of a horror than it actually is. It's much more of a fantasy and kind of like a heartwarming, kind of like fantastical kind of tale of a woman who's leaving her old life behind and running away from it and learning to like rely on herself and just becoming herself. She really like learns to be able to stand on her own 2 feet and actually learn to believe in herself and trust in herself, I think, which I feel like I really enjoyed. I thought it was really good. It was just not as horror filled as I thought it was going to be. There was elements of horror, but it was a lot more fantasy set in this kind of like isolated desert community. There's these kind of desert gods and things don't exactly go to plan. They're not all as nice and benevolent as you may think they might be. It's a kind of like a bit of a found family where she becomes friends with all of her neighbors and the community really comes together, and it's kind of a testament to kind of that found family and community vibes and everyone kind of pulling together and helping Selena on her journey. There's also a dog companion friend in this, which I feel like I also really loved. Overall, I really did enjoy it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I just went into it thinking it was a horror, but it was actually like a heartwarming fantasy kind of with horror element, but there wasn't anything too terrifying in it other than maybe exes or something. That was probably the scariest bit. Exes or unwanted attention from people. But yeah, that was actually my first read of the year, so there we go. I've been lying. Wild Reverence isn't actually my first book of the year, but we're going to continue reading Wild Reverence because it's going to be my second book of the year, I think. I've almost finished it, so that'll be good, and we can continue on with the reading vlog. So to continue on, basically I finished it. We like continue following basically as Matilda is helping Vincent with like his own problems in his like mortal town, and we kind of see like their relationship grow and develop from there. I feel like I can't really say too much else without giving spoilers, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. But I really feel like it's like a romantasy, and so it also feels a lot like a fantasy with like a very big plot of romance, because we see so much of the gods and we see so much of this like fantasy world that these gods inhabit and that the people of this world kind of live in. But it also really feels like Matilda's story. That's what it feels like we're kind of witnessing, is Matilda's story, and a big part of that is her love with Vincent, I suppose. I really love how throughout the book we are following Matilda and we see her from like a young child, and we see Vincent as well, similarly, like from a young child, but I feel like this is Matilda's story. And the roles are kind of reversed, where usually it's kind of like the male god will swoop down and like save the day for the female, but in this it's Matilda who's the god and swoops down to save the day. She's the hero of the story, really. I love how that's kind of basically like a role reversal, but I also really love Vincent as well. He's so cute and like just obsessed with Matilda, and I feel like it's like Matilda changes his mind on a lot of things, where I think he hates the gods for different reasons, and she kind of changes his mind on it, even if there's these sort of like awkward encounters between them. When Matilda and Vincent kind of like meet up again and like as adults, and they're trying to help each other in these different situations, it just feels so, it feels really cute. I really like the way that the romance is done. It's not too much for me. It's like just the right level of cuteness, and like Vincent is like obsessed with her, so it just all makes sense. I love how it kind of starts off as this kind of like awkward thing where they kind of haven't seen each other for ages, so they kind of are like, they haven't really met each other as adults either, so I feel like it's kind of like weird between them, but I feel like there's so much to it, and there's so much kind of like unspoken things that are happening because of they have such a history together, and they know each other, and they've known each other since they were children, so there's that kind of thing between them, like a connection, I guess. Basically, I like the romance, and I thought it was really good, which is rare for me because I generally don't really like romances, or I'm very hard to please with my romances, but I feel like Rebecca Ross just does romance right for me. I feel like the story starts kind of slow, so like the book itself starts with quite a slow opening, I think, especially for like a romantasy, like which is again makes me feel like this feels different from like the kind of classic romantasy. It feels like it's a bit more fantasy with a heavy subplot of romance, and I feel like it's very much marketed as a romance, where the main plot of this book is Matilda and Vincent and their kind of like love story. But I also really love all of the fantasy elements, and I love especially how Rebecca Ross kind of starts the story quite slow with this backstory of Matilda and where she's grown up and the characters around her, so like her mother and her father and all of the other gods that are involved in her life, and how all of these kind of like stories and tales that we're told at the start kind of weave into the narrative and weave into Matilda's overall kind of storyline and her kind of like fate, I guess. And I feel like that's a big part of the book, and I feel like Rebecca Ross just knows how to mix this like whimsical kind of fantasy setting with some higher stakes and this kind of like epicness to it of like an epic fantasy, and all of these battles and different like kind of conflicts going on in like the mortal world and in the gods, and between the gods, and like just between all of these different people. And I feel like it all comes together so well and kind of links up into this one story where all of these parts really play a part in it. It feels like everything that's been described, even if it feels kind of a bit slow at times, does come back to play a part in it. So I really loved that, and I thought that it was really quite gripping. And I love how all of these kind of like high stakes and this kind of epicness kind of all plays in with the plays together with like the complexities of being the gods and the inner workings of the gods and how they see the mortals and how the mortals see them, and that kind of exploration really plays into Matilda's story and also to the stories of the people that are around her as well. Like similarly to the relationship, I really loved the other relationships in this and the way that they also play into Matilda's story. And I think I just loved the way that I really loved the relationship between Matilda and Bade, who's like her kind of mentor, but their relationship is very much kind of like father-daughter kind of relationship, but they both have too much pride to ever like admit to it or like call it what it is. But you can see that there's so much like unspoken love and care between them, even if it feels like it is just being done out of duty. But I really loved the exploration of that and how their relationship changes throughout the book and how that relationship develops, especially towards the end. And overall, I just loved how everything kind of weaved together, and we get all of these parts that kind of become Matilda's tale. And I love how also it feels like things reference back to Divine Rivals. So we see like the gods who are in Divine Rivals, and how kind of and little bits of the story that we know from them. And then we also get some like little bits as well, especially towards the end, about how things came to be and how this story kind of relates to the premise of Divine Rivals and the kind of like magic in that. I thought that was so fun and interesting, and I loved seeing that, and it makes me want to like reread Divine Rivals so that I can kind of like see the links. Basically, I love how everything weaves together, and needless to say, I gave this 5 stars. So I feel like it's been a successful kind of reading experience. My first / technically second book of the year. Both of them are technically 5 stars. I think I gave Snake Eater a 4.5, but like Goodreads makes me round it up. So technically it's a 5-star. Both of my first reads of the year have been 5 stars, which I'm happy about. It means that I'm doing something right. I'm on a good track here. I'm picking the right books that I want to be reading because I love them both, and I can't wait to read more from Rebecca Ross because I love how she does her fantasy. I love her relationships. I love her romance. I love the overall plot and the setting and the atmosphere. I love her writing as well. It's like descriptive and kind of flowery without being too flowery. It's just like the right amount, I would say. Beautifully written without being too hard to understand or feeling unnecessary in some places. And that brings us to the end of reading my first books of 2026. Let me know what your first book of 2026 was, and let me know if you've read Wild Reverence or if you're planning on reading it. If it's on your TBR, let me know. If you liked this video, please give it a like, and if you want to see more from me, then please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!